It's the SDG Podcast. Before we get started, you can check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com/podcast or find us on all the social medias, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Solution Design Group.
Intros. Say hello and introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Josh.
Hi, I'm Chad Jetner.
And I'm Kyle Bacher. We're going to talk about stepping outside your comfort zone.
Oh, and getting better because of it, right?
Right.
Okay.
Like there's benefits, but it's overcoming the fear and accepting, that there's a learning curve and all that stuff.
And Josh is here because Josh just had to do this. Well, not just.
Right.
I mean, I'm a consultant. That's the whole career, right?
Yeah. So you went from DevOps to Java, mostly back end.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. I've done a little front end recently, but yeah.
Yeah. And I went from low code consultant, SharePoint, Intex, and intranets and all that kind of stuff, to the IT department for SDG. And so that was a little bit of a stretch. And Salesforce is a beast, so learning that. When was the last time you had to stretch?
I'm stretching now. I'm a tech lead on a massive project, and we've talked about this before, about like the imposter syndrome and are you good enough and all that stuff. And this is kind of tangential to that, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm kind of stretching right now, but
yeah,
kind of.
I think one thing is our expectations of ourselves, and you have this idea that everybody else is an expert, and you're the one winging it.
I no longer have that idea.
Everybody's winging it all the time.
Everybody's winging it.
Yeah.
Yes.
But winging it with experience is better than winging it without. So that's the transition is, I don't do this specifically for a living, but there's a need. And I have the skills and experience to quickly help fill that need.
Yeah.
And you were talking about situations where, there's no one else, so it's you.
Yep.
And I've been in that spot before. So there's personal stretch, comfort zone. I think there's team stretch and comfort zone when a new business requirement happens that's gonna require some different technology or tools.
Well, I think it's like a skill set stretch, right? Like for you especially, right? And I've done this a long time ago, right? Like I started doing network administration, and then I did a little bit of development, then I did a lot of bit of development, then I did DevOps stuff, and then I did literally everything. And now I'm back to mostly being a back-end developer, but also kind of a tech lead. And jumping from skill set to skill set like that was jarring sometimes, right? Because you are just especially if you're coming into the Java ecosystem and you just realize just how much stuff and how much history there is out there, right? How did you handle that?
I had sort of a head start because the first client that I went to, I ended up sort of having to jump in and do the Java work before I was officially moved out of the DevOps practice and into the Java practice. But it was a lot of I'd done a little bit of Java development before, and I got onto my first enterprise application writing Java, and I went, this is not the Java that I thought I was going to be writing, because it's totally different. You've got to know a whole landscape full of frameworks, and you've got to know a whole landscape full of patterns that you're only going to learn by doing enterprise development, and you're not going to pick them up anywhere else.
Right.
And so in some ways I was lucky because I was on a team that was really supportive, and they were just go fix some bugs, and a couple of SDG folks were there who were prepared to just kind of guide me through the whole process of getting started and getting up to speed doing enterprise Java development. So that was really nice.
But with Java, learning the language is the least of your problems.
Yeah, oh,
right?
yeah.
Like it is the
Yeah.
easiest part of that whole thing. Learning the ecosystem, learning like the CI/CD tools, and then learning Spring, and then learning, the patterns around it, and learning like all of that stuff is just.
Yeah.
I can't imagine coming into that fresh like right now and just picking it up.
Everybody that I have been in the position to introduce Spring to for the first time has had their head explode.
Yeah.
Like,
See,
that is how it goes.
It's easier
the first time you use Spring, your head explodes, and then you put it back together, and then everything makes sense.
And for me, like I've been doing Java development for 20 years at least, right? And so it's easy for me to like kind of walk, because as Java was still kind of young, relatively young when I started, just, now there's Spring. Oh, that's weird. Now we're not doing XML configuration anymore. We're all doing, annotation-based configuration. Now we're doing something completely different. So it's easy for me to keep afloat. I just, like, for a brand new developer, it's got to just be, I don't even know how you do it.
Yeah, I mean, it took some work. There were a number of conversations where I went back to, one of the more seasoned Java developers, and I was just like, why is this like this? I don't understand. It would be so much easier if we did, and like, I'm, the junior dev, and every junior dev thinks that.
Just so you know, like a lot of the senior devs also think that. Like I talk to my buddy Greg all the time. I actually called him today. We're learning Spring has this new thing called a web client, and we're like, what were they thinking? What are they doing? What are they doing? What's a flux? We don't care, right? So we do that too. It's not a junior thing at all.
No, it isn't. But like in the position I was in, I was like very sure that this thing, like I knew the right way to do this. The right way to do this was not with all this like annotations and like reflections and like all that stuff. Was just why do I stop doing this? It doesn't make any sense.
But the nice thing is now you grew into a Java developer. You also have the DevOps experience. You're just compounding your skill sets, right? So you were super uncomfortable for a long time, and now you're
it took a bit.
comfy, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a position where I can sort of become comfortable in either space on relatively short notice. It definitely takes like some ramp up time for me to go back and forth. Like the next client I had after that was much more on the DevOps side. I was working on the CI/CD pipeline for the client. I was working on like monitoring and automation. And after basically working on Java backend code for a year, going in and like having to then do CI work and monitoring work, like I had to sort of unlearn a bunch of habits that I built up over the last year, habits of thought, like, reaching for application programming to solve problems where it was no longer appropriate to do that. And so like it definitely took it took some time of me going, okay, I can't, I want to solve this by writing a program and I can't. I have to solve it with configuration, or I have to solve it with a shell script, or I have to solve it with like by finding the right piece of some third-party service that I can activate and work with. And that took like, there was a lot of like me going back and forth with the other DevOps folks and having the same sorts of conversations. Why are we doing this? This doesn't make sense.
But when you do solve those problems, you get a huge buzz. And it's what keeps you going. Like, you have to have wins.
Oh, man.
And I think breaking things down into small, like, achievable goals, small tasks, lets you have those more frequently. Instead of seeing the win as when I get these 20 tasks done or solve these 20 problems, it's problem 1 is a win, problem 2 is a win.
Yeah, and like being able to observe the results of your work, like in either case, is super, super important.
The bummer of consulting is that just moving on. Like, we're done. You guys are set. You don't need me anymore. I'm gonna go do the next thing. And then I don't. Then it's like, I hope someone like reaches out or gives you some feedback and tells me how it's going.
Wait, we get to move on at some point?
Not you, Chad.
I know.
No, not you.
Yeah, I know.
No.
Is it fair to say, so like, you've got this whole base of experience with DevOps, and then you got the Java and the application development experience.
Mhm.
Do you find yourself, like, every once in a while kind of over-engineering something just because you have so many tools available to you to solve a
Oh,
problem?
yes.
Once in a while?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I have a habit of anytime I'm on a project, I will look at the things that other developers don't look at. Not all the things other developers don't look at.
Right.
Some of the things other developers don't look at. Like, hey, this thing that we're doing, we could automate this. And then I'll write a shell script for it, and I'll put it in the CI pipeline, and then it'll break. And then somebody will be like, why are we doing this again? We could just do this by hand. And I'll be like, oh, yeah.
About that.
Sorry.
I did it again.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the like, some of the fear is going down the wrong path,
Mhm.
because that early learning curve, you're priming the pump.
Mhm.
That's your struggle, and it takes a while to go up. But once you do, like, it is a curve. You
Yeah.
are progressing faster and
Mhm.
gaining confidence and comfort and safety
Well, and
as you go.
yeah, and there's a process by which, like, everybody approaches development a little bit differently. I am a lot more of a generalist than many of the people that I have worked with.
Right.
So, like, I bring experience working with DevOps tools, with CI/CD tools, with, like, I have a little bit of experience doing system management and stuff like that. But also, like, my background, my start in programming wasn't in Java, it was in Common Lisp and then
Yeah.
Haskell, and because, like, I'm a weird dude and I'm attracted to weird things. But the result is that, like, I have a certain level of comfort with diving into something new within the bounds of my sort of, like, my given domains.
Yeah.
That I think a lot of people don't necessarily
Well, and
have.
I think part of, the willingness to go outside your comfort zone is your comfort zone that is your willingness to go outside your comfort zone. Like, how comfortable are you with that? And it gets easier over time because you look back and you trust that you're the same person, you have the same raw materials and experience that you did the last time you had to
Yeah.
do something different, and that worked out.
Yeah.
So you look back on your successes and that you got to this point.
It's Kyle's way of saying next project is going to be .NET. So get excited.
Silverlight,
I've done it. I haven't done Silverlight.
and that's a
I
good thing.
would rather not if I
Yeah.
can avoid it. But
Well, and that, like something like that, having the experience to go, well, this isn't baked enough yet.
yeah.
As a new technology,
Well, I think it's. I mean, as you get further and further along in your career, like, you've got a lot of tools in your belt now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've maybe too many, and you're like, I'm going to use this one to solve this problem, and knowing which tool is right for which problem is absolutely a growth thing, right? And if you're outside of your comfort zone, you might not necessarily know yet what, so, like, you might default to, I'm just going to script this, I'm going to automate this, I'm going to refactor all of this stuff, right? Instead of, I just need to, manually do this one little thing.
Yeah, if I, like, I think one of my biggest points of growth over my career here and as a consultant and just, like, doing enterprise development and DevOps work in general has been, like, being better at that debate with myself, where I am always going to be the person who wants to tear everything apart and rebuild it from scratch. Just like I know that about myself. I've learned that about myself.
yeah.
And I'm not better at not being that person, but I am better at seeing that and going, this isn't the place for that.
Well, that's a
right
stretch
now.
as well,
You know?
is like there's discomfort in, like learning to trust what other people have done,
Yeah.
accept it. And I've done that where I've gone in to a project that had, like, a false start.
Mhm.
But they did, they spent, like, 2 months doing it, and then realize that, yeah, we're going to need some help or something. So you don't want to go in and restart that 2 months, redo that 2 months of work.
Yeah.
But you kind of want to.
You absolutely want to. Yeah.
But you don't, is value, well, at least look through it. And, you know, if there's value there and to avoid rework, then you can take that on. But yeah, I mean, your gut feeling is like, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to start over.
Yeah. The first place I go is always, this is garbage. Why did they do it this way? I'm going to do it better. But then, like, you know, I've gotten better at like having that moment.
Right.
And like going through that cycle and then being like, okay, that was fun. We're not going to do that though.
Right. That's like every consultant, every tech person has that like initial reaction of, what the heck is this? Why did they do it?
What were you thinking?
But, you know, that's kind of just a emotional reaction that you have to get past. And it's like, there's reasons why everything was done that way, and they all made sense at the time. Yeah. And so, like, yeah, I mean, someone's going to come in 2 years from now and look at what I did
and they're going to
have the same gut reaction. And so, so I try not to, you know, like, who built this? You know, it's like, because you're talking to the person that did, and it's like, you know,
that's the quiet part. That stays inside. All those thoughts.
I like that we don't even have to ask that question. There's literally a function called get blame. And it's like, maybe pick a different word after get, right? Like, I don't want to blame somebody. I do want to know who wrote this.
Right. Get history.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be better.
It's a different one, but also like, but get blame.
Log? No, wait, we've got that too.
We got that, yeah.
But get blame. It sounds so offensive. Like,
get point finger.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, solve the problem, not the blame.
Yeah.
So, you talked about having people to lean on, having a support system. When you're going up that ramp, it's nice to have a rope and people like helping you.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I started, it was like right when, you know, I started with SharePoint 2003.
What year was this?
The year was 2008.
Wait, really?
No,
I thought it was going to be
2006, I think.
Oh, okay.
Because I did tech support, and they said our parent company wants us to use SharePoint instead of the file servers.
So this was back when everything ran on vacuum tubes. So.
Oh yeah, we didn't have the cloud. Like I had to be a server admin and a SharePoint guy and a server app whatever guy, a SQL database guy. Like I had to play in all those spaces. But we started with 2003, and then it the new 2007 came out 6 months later, and then they're like, "Oh, we're migrating." And they broke all my stuff, and I had to redo it. But
so you started on 2003 in 2006, and then a couple months later, 2007 came.
Right,
okay.
And that's being forced. You're just the comfort zone is a rug that's constantly being pulled up from under you because they're telling these changes are coming. I used a tool called SharePoint Designer because it had a GUI interface. I'm not good with code. I look at it and it's like when I look at my bills, I get kind of queasy, and it's really far outside my comfort zone.
Sure.
I have over time learned more and more and picked a lot up. So I'm more comfortable now. But yeah, what was your initial question that I'm answering? Really long-winded.
What year was this?
I started 2006 and then 2007, I think it was the end of 2007 that this happened.
Okay.
And then
you look traumatized by this whole experience. Are you okay?
When they took Designer away, when they took the GUI away, because I did really cool stuff with the Designer and with the workflows that were built in and stuff like that. And I had the developers that built the workflow engine tell me that the workflow I built was the most complex workflow they'd ever seen. And that the wait until this happens thing, wait until this date, it'll be fixed in the next release or the next service pack that'll come out in 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay, well, my whole class registration system is, the automatic waiting list notifications are done. Yeah. They're toast.
Yep.
But they took Designer away, or the GUI away in Designer. And I'm like, well, that was my main tool.
Yeah. And like, the job doesn't go away.
Right. So I had to transition, like, okay, how will I approach this now? You know, what kind of projects will I be able to do now? Because I was so reliant and tied to that tool. And I think that's when your comfort zone is like really comfortable and safe. And so those, like, I mean, I had a moment where I'm like, is this the end of my career?
Yeah. Because
everything I did was in, using Designer. It turned out it wasn't.
All right. So what did you do to get yourself through that?
I pushed.
Yeah.
That's what I do. Like, whatever I'm learning, whatever problem I have to solve, I just push until I break through or until I reach a point of exhaustion and I just can't anymore.
Wait,
but
have you ever done that? I just can't anymore?
I shouldn't anymore. I hit that, like, it's going to take me 40 hours to do something that person with experience could do in like a day.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is something I shouldn't do. But as far as giving up, no, I don't really have that. Like, if you put a puzzle in front of me, I go hyper focus or problem solving.
Yeah.
Like, if I have a problem to solve in the office and you say hi to me, I probably won't even hear you. But pushing, because you're going to hit barriers, you're going to get stuck on things, and you just have to keep picking away at it, and then you rely on your support system and documentation and documentation not so much, but I didn't have that starting out. So I thought, my first consulting gig, there was other SharePoint consultants. I thought they were going to really have a lot of knowledge, be able to help me out. And the experience I had gained that got me that job, like, I was on the same level.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, no one's here to make my life easier.
How about this? That, like, once you've left your comfort zone, like you did with Java, getting back into your comfort zone is almost boring now, right? Like,
it's different. I mean, like, it's, I talked about that a little bit earlier, like how if I'm going to get back into like a space where I'm managing the CI pipeline or like dealing with all the monitoring and the alerting and all that stuff, like that's a paradigm shift that I have to go through, right, to get out of the sort of programming frame of reference where the solution to everything is to go into the code and do something in the code. And I have to get out of that. And that's a whole like universe of ways of thinking that govern how you solve problems. And you have to get out of that if you're going to be like running CI pipelines, because the structure is just not that. It's not a program, it's a tool. And you've got a config language or a couple of different config languages that you can use to set it up. And the guardrails are different. And you have much less direct control over how it works. And that's good. But like, it takes a lot of getting used to. And like, there's always going to be like points very early on in the process where I'm like, why can't I just hack into this stupid server and tell it to just hold on to this stupid file that I want to heap between this step and the next step, and the server won't do it. Why won't the server do it? Why can't I just make the server do the thing?
I'm gonna give you some space here, man. It was like,
and like that's a it takes it's a sort of restructuring of the ways that I approach problems, because I can't just go in and take my wrench and take whatever the thing is apart and fix it. I have to go, okay, well, the thing works the way that it works, and I cannot change that.
Yeah.
So I have to work within those boundaries, and I have to use the tools that are allowed in order to make things happen.
Right.
Sometimes that means I go back to, the people who are relying on the CI pipeline, and I go, hey, this thing that you want to happen, like, we can do it, but it's going to take more work than you have time for.
Right.
And sometimes I go back and I go, hey, we can do this, but it means I'm going to disappear for 2 days and you're not going to hear from me.
Right.
While I build the solution to that problem.
Yeah. Like, I need to go hide and figure this out. And then you go hide and you're like, how am I going to figure this out?
Yeah. But if I can, just like with you, is once I get started, usually I can, I know what needs to happen.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to do it.
Right.
But I can find some documentation. I can, I know enough about the ways that programs work and, the ways that, the ways that developers use the same patterns over and over and over again to solve different problems in different environments. That usually, once I get into it, I can decompose a problem enough that I can work out a way around it, or I can come up with a very clear, no, this isn't going to happen.
Yeah, you have to really develop tolerance for frustration and embrace the suck, which is a David Goggins term. It's going to suck. So just embrace it, accept it, and do it.
David Goggins? Is he the guy from Justified?
No. David Goggins is a former Navy SEAL that is probably the world champion of mental toughness. He was an exterminator, overweight, laid on the couch drinking shakes, and he saw a Navy SEALs commercial and basically changed his whole, he just started working out and running, and then eventually got to the SEALs, and he's just insane, the amount of drive he has.
The weirdest part of that story is that the Navy SEALs have to advertise. I would have thought they would just been, hey, we're the Navy SEALs.
Well,
come hang out.
How are you going to know how awesome it is? You're not going to watch the Navy SEALs movie. Well, maybe.
You would.
I mean,
that's a big commercial. 90 minutes.
You'll see it in every Marvel movie. You'll see it in every popular modern video game.
It's like ninjas.
Their advertisement is everywhere.
It's ninjas or it's SEALs. Yeah. But it's, you listen to those guys and it's inspiring. And that helps to be inspired, motivated. I like to have a mission. I like, because I grew up reading comic books and stuff, and the superheroes, the champions, and they always have a mission they need to accomplish. And I like to, figure out what my mission is. Okay, if I do this, it's going to save them, a lot of time. It's going to make people happier. And then the organization will function better because of what I'm doing. And that's if it's because what you're doing right now, you're on a mission, you're leading a big project.
Well, that's where I was going earlier when I was like, what if you get back to the comfort zone, right? Because the projects for me just get bigger and bigger. And now I'm like, all right, what if I get back to where you were on a one-person thing? At times on a big project when it's stressful and there's a lot going on and I can take 5 minutes here and there to go to the bathroom or get some coffee. Right before this, I had to take a call really quick, right? I don't know how comfortable I would be going back to just this is easy. It's two people.
It's like those thrill seekers. It's you get kind of addicted to being in that in that mode, be in that zone.
Yeah, like I get like feedback from you sometimes, like, "Hey, slow down a little bit, just slow down." And I'm like, "Well,
no.
If I slow down, it's like a bicycle. If I slow down, I'm going to wobble and fall out, right? I feel like slowing down isn't really an option for me sometimes. But yes, eventually this project will end, and I've got to imagine the next one is going to be much smaller. I don't know what that's going to feel like for me because I'm constantly.
It'll be like stepping into a vacuum.
Yeah, or maybe it'll feel nice, right? Maybe it'll feel like I can relax. And
I've had projects that went smooth as silk for great people that listened to everything I said and were happy with my work, and I knocked it out of the park. And those are really nice when they happen. But they don't happen very often.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, for each person it's different, but it's possible for that, like, being on the edge of what you're capable of or what you feel like you're capable of, right? Like, it's possible to, like, sustain that for a little bit too long, or to be a little bit too far past that edge.
Yeah.
Like, I have been there a couple times and it's not my favorite place to be. And then, like, I was at a client and I had to do a thing that was, like, way outside of where I thought I was capable of, and I was very clear to the client, like, I don't think I'm the person you want for this. And the client was like, "You're what we've got, so you're doing it." And I went, "Okay, here we go." And I, like, threw myself into it and I gave it all that I had and I did my best. And I, as far as I know, got, like, I'm a consultant. I didn't finish the project,
Right. You finished your part.
I finished my part in the project, but I don't know, they didn't let me go early. Nobody complained. Everybody said that I had done a good job. So I take that to mean I probably did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
But then coming off that project, my next project was on a small team of 5 people where I was a developer and I had tickets and I was able to just do my tickets. And boy, what a relief.
Yeah. Well, they're in the restaurant business that I worked in many years ago in a past life. Somebody told me if somebody has a really good experience, they might tell a few people. Mm-hmm. If they have a really bad experience, they will tell everybody. So if you do something that's bad, that they don't like, you're going to hear about it. It's going to come back to you. So if you don't hear anything, no news is good news.
Yeah.
And good news is great news. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll stop there. So, do you need a light at the end of a tunnel when you're like starting out?
No, not really. I mean, you don't even know how big the tunnel is, right? When you're starting out. I think the thing that I'm on now, right? Not to get too specific, but we guessed maybe a couple of Christmases we'll be on this, and it's not. It's much bigger than that. So like right now, I don't even know what the end looks like. I know I've got a vague idea of what complete looks like as far as what I can deliver, but as far as like, I don't know, there's this. It would be nice to have. Like, this is me actually pitching waterfall methodology. Mm-hmm. It's not a dirty word, right? Like those types of projects are kind of nice because you could actually say, okay, this is all the steps. And Agile's fun too, right? But it's a little more, continuous improvement and a little way less rigid than just here's all the requirements. Mm-hmm. Tell us how long this is going to take. I would love to work on a waterfall project again at some point.
And
kind of.
The nice thing about that is, like Agile and Scrum, whatever that is you guys do. I've never done it for real, but it's like staccato. It's chunks of stuff. Mm-hmm. Waterfall is like, okay, this is the thing. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of, as a team, you get in this flow state where you can just keep driving the work, doing that work. Mm-hmm. And then, but at the end, like when you're going to go to the next step, it's like, okay, did we pull this off so that we can move on? Because with waterfall, you have all these dependencies and things like that. I think it's tougher to manage. Yeah. But there's definitely an upside to it.
Yeah.
I think for the places, like the times when I have been in positions where I feel like I'm getting to the edge of or outside of my comfort zone, having a clear vision for what the goals are and where I'm trying to get to has been super duper helpful. Not so much like this is exactly what it's going to look like when it's done,
Right.
but like, if we're in an agile project, then every time we go through an iteration of the application where I've got a clear sense for what the roadmap looks like going forward, I know what the client is looking for, they might not have it, they don't have it like fully totally defined because you can't, because it's going to change.
Right.
And the goals are going to change. But at every step of the way, I can go, okay, well, I know that in 3 months or in 6 months, we're really trying to be here.
Yeah.
And I know roughly what it's going to take to get there, right?
Like the work isn't really any different.
Mm-hmm.
So, like as long as I know the direction I need to head, and then I'm heading there,
Mm-hmm.
I don't need like an entire map with everything figured out. It's like, no, I just need to get here.
Yeah.
So, and then because you're like the course corrections you need to make aren't going to really be any different. So it's like you're just checking and going, are we going the right way? Okay, good. Are we going the right way? Okay, good.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're not.
Yeah. And like for me, I think having the whole roadmap, every single step planned out in great detail, makes it harder.
Yeah.
Makes it a lot harder.
There's a difference between, so just to switch gears, like you step into a gig or you step into a role and like they have, here's what's expected of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, that could be your comfort zone, it might not be.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also like your personal ability, especially after you've already left your comfort zone, you go to a role that here's clearly what's defined for you. Well, okay, that's cute, that's adorable. But I'm also going to do this and this and this and this, and I'm going to build upon that role in a way that's going to provide a lot of value for the customer and for the team. I'm more of a, worrying about like how healthy is the team, right? Is everybody contributing? Is everybody happy? That's the biggest thing. And then what can I do as a leader to make one, contributions meaningful, team happiness, team morale high, and then everything else. And that's usually not listed in a role, right? Like that's something that comes from leaving your comfort zone, doing ridiculous things for people, and bringing that back to a role that's like narrowly defined. And I think that's one of the things that as we start doing more and more, as you get more and more gigs and you see what happens when you leave your comfort zone. Well, this is all the stuff I can do now. This is all the stuff I can bring to these smaller roles that might not necessarily be, expected, but when it happens, it sure is delightful.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But taking the right lessons out of that is important though, right? Because like going outside of your comfort zone and like trying things that you don't necessarily feel totally like prepared for, like by definition involves a certain amount of failure, right? It involves a certain amount of like doing a thing and the thing doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so like it's really important to be able to do a thing and the thing doesn't work and that not be a catastrophe. And it's like it's really easy to make that a catastrophe and be like, this means I can't do this thing.
Well, also like when you leave your comfort zone and you bring that back to a smaller role, right? And you do all these other things, it also pushes everybody else around you to leave theirs too, right? Which leads to career growth, like for everybody on your team, which is healthy AF. Like that's perfect if you can do that for people.
Yeah. I think too, like having the right mindset and to where failure doesn't really just crush you. It's like, it's not failure necessarily, it's just not success yet. And it's part of that process.
Yeah. And it's like, sometimes it is not success at all. Sometimes it's this thing didn't work and it's not gonna work and I'm gonna have to move on.
Right. Was it a bad decision or was it just not the right decision?
Yeah. Or
I like the semantics. They're like,
was it
yes to both questions.
like, was it a bad decision or was it a decision that you made? And now you got to own that you made that decision, and you got to own that that decision didn't work out the way you were hoping it to, which doesn't necessarily make it a bad decision, or even a wrong decision. It just means it didn't work.
Just to be clear, though, there is such a thing as a bad idea. Right?
There are bad ideas.
Oh,
And
yeah.
bad decisions.
Yes.
My great ideas become bad ideas after a few days.
Yeah. And I did, the way I approach that, I own it completely, right? Like, hey, look what I screwed up, guys.
Yeah.
Like, and then make sure you be public about it. Like when you screw something up, when you write bad code, just make. I mean, now it's practically a joke on my team. If I write something horrible, or if I forget to run the test before I commit, or whatever bad idea or bad decision or in the moment thing that I did, we make fun of it, and it's more fun that way.
That being transparent, open, and having candor, and kind of calling yourself out, and then laughing about it, making it kind of a fun thing. I think that kind of adds a lot of momentum to your project, because you're not getting stuck and ruminating. It's like, you know what I did? I did this and it totally tanked.
It lets other people make mistakes comfortably as well, right? That's the biggest motivator for me to highlight the bad ideas, because other folks then say, oh, okay, well now I don't feel so bad about it.
That is probably one of the worst things that can happen on a project, is having somebody get bent out of shape at every mistake you make.
Yep.
Because it happens. And it's like, can we just put these in a bank account, and at the end you can just, treat me like a piñata, and we'll have just one rumble, and I'll give you a big bat, and you can just hammer me instead of this, because it really crushes your spirit.
Yeah.
So how do you maintain that positivity? You're such a positive person.
Yes.
And I'm not.
What?
I'm a sky is falling warrior kind of, skeptic.
How do I don't know. I don't know how to answer that, because
it's built in. You're wired that way.
Yeah. There's no easy answer. There's no trick. There's no, it's not.
There are. I don't think that's totally true. I think that it's a thing that you can cultivate.
Right.
By, with your own internal practice of, reviewing the ways that you respond to things and going, this isn't how I would like to have responded.
Right.
Right? How would I like to have responded? And then, by doing a lot of reflection and doing that, real internal honesty with yourself, and being able to sort of see the ways in which you maybe aren't living up to the ways that you would like to be, that's how I think you can open up the path to becoming like somebody who's just kind of naturally amazing, like Chad over here.
Well, there's a huge benefit to it. So what you don't want to do is be a Debbie Downer and debilitate the team, crush their spirit, and
I just see no value in being miserable, right? So don't
fake. If you don't have built-in positivity, learn to fake it, because it's you can. That's in your head, and you're only hurting yourself. And if you just try to soldier on, at least you don't have to be like a phony, but you can just kind of bury that stuff. Keep it to yourself, and then try to be positive, or at least appear positive, so that it's not affecting the people around you. But if you really are if you really become a positive person, that also affects the people around you. You've inspired me, Chad, with your positivity.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Are you gonna be more positive now?
I try to be. I think about that sometimes.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, I didn't mean to say something nice about you.
I know,
Back on him.
It's very jarring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's no magic trick. There's just who was the soccer player? Gosh, what the guy was?
Really?
No, Zlatan.
Recent? Because I only know, like,
butchering it, but like he was
Minnesota Kicks.
no, he was on a. Here's a quote from him. He's standing next to a kid, and the kid's really nervous, and this guy's like tall and like gorgeous, and he's got a big ponytail and all these like tattoos, and he goes to the kid, "Why are you miserable right now? You are standing next to Zlatan, the greatest soccer player of all time." And the kid just like lit up, and I'm no Zlatan, but yeah.
You can hop on the positivity wagon and get carried along with that. And over time, I found that, you will become that thing that you're trying to be. And that's a step outside your comfort zone, and understanding like how you're wired, and that you're going to have that initial negative reaction until you kind of realize that and understand it, and then you can kind of deal with it and turn it around.
Yeah.
Because there's you can always find reasons that are good, like things that are good about something, and focus on them and keep your eye on the prize and not let failure get you down. And it's like shark skin, like toughness, mental toughness that you're developing, where you can, through your just willpower, kind of make that change if you can to get there. I think so. I haven't done it yet. So
I think it's also like the positivity thing is a maturity thing too. Like earlier on in my career,
yeah,
I was a lot more insecure, a lot more nervous, and now at this point, I'm just like, well, what's the worst that's ever going to happen, right? The absolute worst is I'm going to have to ask for another few months on this project, or I'm going to estimate. There's no failure anymore. It's just
and the maturity, you realize that it's not your fault that something not necessarily your fault that something is going to take longer than you thought. Or be different than you thought. That happens because you don't know what you don't know until you get into it. Because we don't have if you're going to do an estimate, you don't have a ton of information. You've had a few meetings and you've looked into a few things, and then you're kind of thinking through the project in your head, all the tasks, all the kind of milestones that need to happen to get there. And building this block of time that is going to change. And it's if you take that on and it's my personal failure that it's going to take longer than we thought, that's not exactly a good thing.
Yeah.
So, but communicating that early, figuring that out early and saying, well, based on what we've learned after the 6 months I've been here, it's going to take another 6 months. So, and I know we said it was going to take 3 months, but you want to be in the ballpark.
Yeah.
Is there a hard date for you on this project?
There's been many hard dates. There is a new hard date.
Okay.
I think we can get there, and we probably will. But if we don't, now I'm confident enough to be here's all the reasons we didn't. Here's all the new things that we found out.
Yeah.
And we'll be fine.
Yeah. And I kind of like having that hard date because it really motivates me to get stuff done, but I don't want to cut corners and build kludgy, stuff just because I can make shortcuts to meet that goal.
But it can be motivating to help keep the balance between the quality of what you want to produce and the scope of what you want to produce.
Yeah.
There's always an over-engineered version of the thing that you're trying to build that costs more time. And having a hard deadline, at least for me, helps to keep that urge to make it better under control, where I can be okay, but it has to be done by this time.
Right.
There's a limit to how much better I can make it because it's got to be done, and it being done is more important than continually getting better.
Yeah, I like that. The idea of a minimum viable product approach.
Yeah. Yeah, you define, I mean, we've done that in ours, right? The MVP for what we're doing is it has to do these 3 things and it has to do those really well.
Right.
And everything we decorate that with around the edges is cherries on top. And then we just keep finding new cherries and we keep finding new 3 things and we keep moving our hard dates to accommodate those. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like you want to deliver business value and you want to do it, you want to delight everybody that uses what you're going to build. But at the same time, it's defining that is sometimes really hard.
Yeah. A couple of the times I've been farthest outside my comfort zone have been in positions where either like there just was not enough knowledge to come up with a real definition of the thing.
Yeah.
Or I kept trying to push for a minimum viable product according to the deadline that the client had set and going, this is what I think we can get done. And the client coming back and going, no, we need you to do 3 times that.
Right.
And that's an uncomfortable place to be.
Yeah. I think some parting thoughts. We're getting close to the end.
Yeah. Don't be bummed out. Don't be bummed out. And if you are bummed out, message me, and we'll hang out. And I promise you won't be bummed out after that.
Yeah,
it's impossible.
Be persistent. Trust that you're the same person that succeeded in the past when you stepped outside your comfort zone. Try to stay positive and lean on your support system. You don't have to be a martyr. You don't have to be a hero. Like you can share the credit and, because delegating or leaning on people, that stuff is difficult. So you kind of need to set your ego aside sometimes to do that. But I would say you're gonna hit walls and you got to break through them. You got to push.
I think a healthy relationship with discomfort involves the knowledge that discomfort is involved in growth.
Right.
And if you are going to grow, that will require you being uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah.
But it also involves a measure of self-care and not just continuing to hurl yourself at a big wall, because that can be really self-destructive.
Yeah, and it's like it increases your fear of danger and fear of the unknown, and it's overhead. It's like this is actually adding to the burden of going outside my comfort zone. And my other parting thought would be don't get too comfortable. Yeah, if you're totally comfortable and things are easy, it might be a warning sign that you need to find something.
The actor that played Jar Jar Binks in The Phantom Menace, he's a Jedi now. There's room for growth.
I think with that, we'll shut her down.
There you go.
Yeah. Say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Good night.
See ya.
Solution Design Group is a digital product consultancy in Minneapolis. Check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com or look for us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Solution Design Group.